Hi, welcome. This is a brief video kind of to get us started with the course project that we'll be working on in this class. Essentially, this project is a series of exercises where students will be going through the steps and processes for doing data analysis for a project, so to support a specific aim. In this project, students will continue developing a variety of skills necessary for data analysis. These include variable creation and management, correlations, chi-squares, t-tests, and Mann-Whitney U-tests, ANOVAs, Kruskal-Wallis H-tests, linear and logistic regressions. We'll also be learning how to determine which statistics in the output that we will be interpreting and be putting into our reports. We'll also learn how to describe the results and how to write about these results. The work for the project is going to be done over the course of 3 mini projects during 3 weeks of the quarter. Mini project 1 will be doing the work for that starting April 24th. For mini project 2, it'll be May 22nd, and for mini project 3, we'll be starting that on June 5th. Now, before we could even start the mini project 1, we need to think a little bit about what we want to do, what type of project we want to do, and the data that are available for doing that. We're going to be using the publicly available data with the Chicago Health Atlas. This project requires you to ask a question, a research question, and use 6 variables from the Chicago Health Atlas to answer that question. Now, these 6 variables, one of them must be a dependent variable. And the dependent variable is essentially a variable or an outcome of interest or an outcome measure that we are interested in. For individuals who are interested in maternal and child health, this might be something like the preterm birth rate or the infant mortality rate, the maternal diabetes rate, somebody who's a little bit more interested in social issues. They might be interested in the social issues related to the homicide mortality rate. Or maybe somebody is interested in breast cancer. You could do the community level characteristics that are associated with the breast cancer rate in Chicago community areas. So one of your variables must be a dependent variable, and it should be something that you're interested in. The other 5 variables are going to be factors that you think are related to that dependent variable. Now, we often call these independent variables or covariates. These are going to be the things that we think influence that dependent variable. So, for example, if you think that, if you're interested in the infant mortality rate of community areas in Chicago, then you might say, well, I'm kind of interested in the percentage of the community area that does not have a high school degree. And so that might be a variable that I think is related. Individual or community areas with lower levels of residents with high school degrees might have higher infant mortality rates. Or you might say per capita income is something interesting for you for this relationship. You might say, like, you're interested in breast cancer mortality, and you think that community areas with higher per capita incomes are likely to have lower breast cancer mortality rates. So it doesn't the main focus you want to keep is you want to kind of keep your main focus on the dependent variable. The independent variables are the things that we think are going to be related to that. Okay. Now, the data at the Chicago Health Atlas is community level data. So these are for the 77 community areas in Chicago, which means that our interpretation or analysis is about the things that affect community infant mortality rates or community breast cancer rates or community premature mortality rates or community preterm birth rates. Whatever it is that you are thinking about, think about it in terms of the community level. Okay. For this assignment, we will need to create a data set, and I think it's probably easiest to do that in Excel. I would be very cautious about doing Excel or some other spreadsheet editing program. I think in On the Mac, you have, I think it's called Numbers. That'll work just fine. You could also even do Google Sheets. That's fine too. But just be careful, because sometimes the formatting with all of these is a little strange. So just be careful when you're pasting your data into these various programs to make sure that it's pasting in the way it's supposed to. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at the Chicago Health Atlas. Now, if you go to chicagohealthatlas.org, you'll see this page, and this you'll have a couple different ways to look at this data. I think it's easiest to just click on View All Indicators, because here you can just kind of drill down to all the things that you're interested in, and basically just sort of look at the various items that are in the Chicago Health Atlas. Now, one thing, my background is in infant maternal health, so I'm probably going to be really interested in infant mortality. I might even be interested in the lead poisoning rate, just because I think it's fascinating. I might look at the very low birth weight. And then there's where's the mortality section? There is a mortality section. Yeah. Okay. All right. So this page, when you click on infant mortality, you get this sort of summary table, okay? And you can toggle back and forth between citywide and community areas, okay? When you click on community areas, it brings up the 2013, 2017 infant mortality rates for each of the community areas in Chicago, okay? So essentially, the infant mortality rates for all these community areas for 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017 were averaged together. So over this period, there were on average 2.7 deaths per thousand births in Rogers Park. There was 7.1 deaths per thousand births in Albany Park, so on and so forth. You can also go back and forth between the different types of data. The ranges that you see here are usually what's presented for the community area. So you can get citywide data and you can get it for each different year. But the problem with that is that you need, for this assignment, in order to do analysis, we need to have the individual community areas. And when you click on the community areas, the data for infant mortality is only available for these ranges. Now, it is not 100% necessary that you use the most recent data, but you want to make sure that all of your variables are from the same time period. Okay, so we wouldn't want to have infant mortality rates from 2005 to 2009 and then have all of our independent variables from 2012 to 2016 or 2013 to 2017. We want them all to be from the same time period. Now, we could probably copy and paste this whole sheet into an Excel document, but it's rather onerous to work with because you have to deal with all the formatting. We can instead go to this upper right-hand corner of this web page, and where it says this little arrow kind of pointing down, that gives us the opportunity to download this data, okay? So if we download it and open it in Excel, we are presented with this, okay? Now, it takes a minute or so, but you can look kind of briefly and see what we're working with here. We've got the first few rows of this is all based on Chicago data. It goes 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, okay? And there's a bunch of different variables here. These are the variables are in the columns. And then we have our individual community areas starting in line 34. Now, we see data for 2013, 2017. We've got it for 2012 to 2016. We've got 2011 to 2015, and then 2010 to 2014, 2005 to 2009, and 2000 to 2004. So we could get community level data in 5-year increments going back to 2000. Okay, which is it's a pretty nice thing to be able to do. Okay. In terms of the columns that we're interested in, we want to work with the actual rate data, okay? So the cumulative number, the average number, those are not going to be helpful for us because in order to get the rate, we would need to have some information about the population. So instead, we are going to basically take the crude rate here, okay? In this particular data set, it is in column M, and the rest of these are not useful for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of these going over to the community area and hide them. Okay, so just right click and hide. Now, the first thing I'm probably going to start with is I want to have a spreadsheet that has the community name and the number. If you'll see here, you've got numbers, the community areas in Chicago are numbered from 1 to 77, okay, starting with Rogers Park, number 1, and then going down to O'Hare, which is, Edgewater, which is 77. Now, we want to make sure that we keep that variable in, because if we ever need to merge data at some point, we want to merge on the basis of that number and not the names, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to start building another spreadsheet here. I'm going to go split screen because I think it is probably the easiest way to do this. If you've got a double monitor setup, like shout out to you and the good choices you've made because that's awesome. Okay. So we're going to start by trying to get the community name and the number, okay? And as you can see, I'm highlighting the name and number right now, and I'm going to copy and paste those into my new spreadsheet, okay? I'm just going to bring them right over here and paste, okay? And I'm going to label my first column community area. And we want to take out all the spaces here because SPSS can be real fussy with the spaces, and we're going to be doing the analysis for this in SPSS. Okay, so instead of using spaces, we're going to use an underscore. Okay. All right, so you've got community area underscore name, community area underscore ID. Okay, so that's great. So this is the infant mortality data file. I'm going to just try to use the most recent data possible, okay? And that's from 2013 to 2017. So I'm going to start by making my new column, let's call it IMR for infant mortality rate, and put underscore 2013 to 2017, okay? Don't put any dashes in there either because SPSS does not like it. Okay, so what we're going to do over here is we're going to highlight the crude rate column to just kind of keep us centered so that we don't accidentally copy in something that is not what we want to use. So all of the crude IMRs are going to be in column M, okay? And for 2013 to 2017, basically what I need to do is find the data, the beginning of this data. Okay, so it's going to be 2013, 2017, Rogers Park. Let's start with the first sort of cell and then just click on it and drag it down to 77, which is Edgewater. Okay, so that is the infant mortality rates for community areas from 2013 to 2017. Okay, they're averaged. I'm going to copy that and then come over here into our spreadsheet and paste it. Okay. Now, that's awesome. I always like to just double check that I didn't paste over this top cell because I do that sometimes. And I also want to make sure I have 77 lines of data in here, which I do. And I'm not going to worry too much about it being highlighted because I can go back and unhighlight it later. So that's my first variable. That's going to be my DV. Now I could even do something like this and put DV like this, and maybe take out the underscores. Okay, I can do that as well. That lets me know that I have my dependent variable in order. Okay, so let me go back to the spreadsheet. First, before I do that, let me save my new data set. because if anything happens, I want to make sure that I have this, the start of this saved. And let's just put this on the I thought I might be able to get the shortcuts, and I don't have them available for this. So that's okay. Okay, so I am going to now, since I've got my dependent variable, I have to get the other 5 variables from my data set. And you know, I'm a sociologist and a demographer, so I'm big into sort of the things at the population level that are going to be important for infant mortality rates. And so I think I might try something like prenatal care. Things like, where is it? There's a prenatal care measure here, maybe access to care. Let's take a look. Prenatal care so we've got early and adequate prenatal care. That's one variable I could use. I think that prenatal care is probably related to infant mortality in several different ways. So that's why I'm kind of interested in it. So the independent variables that you're looking for, you want to think about them in terms of how they might be related to your dependent variable. Okay. So in this case, this is based on the the adequacy of prenatal care utilization index measure that's calculated by the Illinois Department of Public Health and their Vital Statistics Division. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look for data for 2013 and 2017. And if we just, we can toggle back and forth between citywide and community areas. All right, and they have it. They've got 2013 and 2017. So I'm going to download this and check it out. And let's go ahead and go split screen here. So let's go IV for our new variable. Let's call it IV PNC 2013, 2017. Okay. Now for our measure here, we want to see how this thing is captured. It looks like it's a percentage, okay? You can tell because the top row says percent, and we don't want to use the confidence interval percent. So we want to use the point estimate, so percent here. So this is going to be the column that we end up using. And we're going to go ahead and just highlight it and hide everything else, just because it makes it a little bit easier when we're trying to do the copy and paste portion. Okay, so we want to have, there we go, hide. Okay, so for 2013, 2017, we need Rogers Park all the way to O'Hare. Now, I think that pretty much every data set that we download from the Chicago Health Atlas will be in order from community area 1 to community area 77. So you should just eyeball and make sure that is the case. You can tell just by looking at these that is the case. If you get a situation where the data is not like that, you just need to sort it. Okay, so sort it on the GeoID number. All right, so we've got our data here selected. Let's copy and then come over here into our spreadsheet and paste. Okay, we're going to scroll down to the bottom and make sure that we've got data all the way through Edgewater and that we have data for Rogers Park. Okay, so that's our first independent variable. Now, let me see, there's some of these variables that are kind of interesting here, like this unmet dental needs due to cost. We could, I don't know, it could be kind of interesting, like if you don't have enough money to go to the dentist, maybe you feel like you might not have enough money to go for early and adequate prenatal care and do all the other things that are necessary to protect the health of a baby. We could think about that. However, we're not going to be able to use this data, all right, because the community areas it is available for are limited. Okay, so we have Norwood Park, Hermosa, Gage Park, Chicago Lawn, West Englewood, Humboldt Park, North Lawndale, South Lawndale. So this data comes from the Sinai Community Health Survey. And instead of surveying the entire city, or instead of surveying participants from the entire city, like the Chicago Health Survey does, Sinai Community Health Survey, it focused only on a handful of community areas in Chicago, okay? Because of the way we're trying to do analysis, we need to have data for all of Chicago, okay? So we actually can't use this data, this variable right here, because one, just how our project is set up, we want to make sure that we have analysis for all 70, we want to do the analysis based on all 77 community areas. But just like from a logistical perspective, there's 8 rows of data here. And in order to use it in our data set, we'd have to like go in and like do this by hand, and that's just annoying. So we're not going to do this. We're not going to be able to use this data set. So I would say for the most part, anytime you see the data from Sinai Community Health Survey, you just don't work with it. You're not going to be able to do anything with it. Okay. So you have to find different variables to work with. And it's not clear, like from the outset, how to get just the Chicago health data, how to not have any of the Sinai data pulled in to your sort of exploration of this webpage. So, that's not ideal, but it's just, sort of the reality of working with this data set. We could try the no health insurance. That definitely is in here for community areas. Our data for 2013 to 2017. So this would not be ideal because the years are 2012 to 2016. But I know the infant mortality data are for 2012 to 2016. So I could always go back and grab that 2012, 2016 infant mortality data and put it in my data set. In fact, I'm probably going to end up doing that, which is not, it's not a big thing at all. Because to me, like, I would rather take the time and do that than have to make these like weird, have this like weird circuitous conversation about whether or not data from 2012 to 2016 apply well for data from 2017 or 2013 to 2017. So I would probably just go back and revise to 2012 to 2016. And you have that data in here for the prenatal care measure. So while it's here and it's open, let's just go ahead and copy and paste this into our data set. This is our data set. And I change up, actually, I'll just put it over here. Cool. All right. So I've got prenatal care for 2012, 2016, prenatal care for 2013, 2017. Only because I haven't quite decided which year I'm gonna like settle on. So let's don't save that. And then this is the no health insurance. So let's get this data. Let's put it over here. Oops. Indicator. Okay. So this is no prenatal care, or I'm sorry, no health insurance. So this, I'm going to start over here. Actually, let me put a new variable in here for IMR in case I need it. All right, so this is going to be an IV, no health. Or no insurance, 2012 to 2016. Okay, so now we're going to find out where this data is. It's in this percent column here, which is fine. Let's highlight it. And then we'll hide all these other columns because we want to get our community numbers right up against our data so we make sure that we're getting the right data. Okay, so we've got 2012 to 2016 percent starting with Rogers Park, going down to Edgewater. Copy, paste. Okay. Now, it's not in here for 2013 and 2017, so I'm not going to be able to add that variable to my data set, but that's okay. Let me go back to the infant mortality file that we had. This is here, and we had 2012 to 2016, and we got to hide all these other columns. So hide. All right, so 2012 to 2016 right here. So we're going to copy and paste this right there. Okay, so DV IMR 2012 2016. Okay, so this process is it has to be sort of what's the name of it, like iterative. You may need to go back to the Chicago Health Atlas a couple of times before you settle on variables that you're interested in, and variables that you think might be interesting or variables that you think you might include in your analysis. You might decide later that you can't use them because they don't include, they are not there for the years that you need. So, you know, I'm kind of pulling in extra variables here because I haven't fully decided which which variables I'm going to be using. I've got infant mortality data for 2012 to 2016, and I have it for 2013 to 2017. So far I've got prenatal care for both of those time periods, but I only have health insurance for 2012 to 2016. Now, it's possible that I go back out to the Chicago Health Atlas and come up with other variables and not including prenatal care and health insurance. That's totally fine. But you just want to make sure that you have your 5 independent variables and your 1 dependent variable from the same years as much as possible. Because what you don't want is you don't want to be in a position of having to make the argument that prenatal care, percentages of early and adequate prenatal care in 1 year are related to infant mortality rates in a previous year, because that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so as much as possible, these years need to be kind of the same for each of our variables, or they at least need to have some heavy overlap. So that's that. I hope that you found this helpful, and give me an email or put a note on the problems discussion board in course module for some help if you need it. Thanks.